Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric, and I'm continuing the series Dreamcast Dreamland, where I take a look at some of my favorite Dreamcast games of all time. And I got a bonus episode for you guys this week because it seems like every time I talk about an unreleased game and I put a period on the end of my commentary sentence, something happens to make me completely revisit it. For the last 3 years, Agartha has been done and dusted. It was a prototype, you could burn it, you could play it on your Dreamcast, and that was the entire story. But after I did that video, like a lot of times, a lot more information and playable demos came out. Before you get too far involved, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down there as well. But honestly, when I talked about Agartha, I talked about how excited I was at the concept of the game. I remember this being previewed back in the day, and it looked like a really excellent survival horror game that had a lot of D2 vibes to it. And I'm going to show you guys later on in the video some of the cinematics that come with this game, and it's going to further cement that D2 connection. Definitely the developers had some inspiration in mind when they were making it. But suddenly, this week, someone else found the development kit with some stray files from Agartha on it that were used to repair a broken prototype that was corrupted, and now we're playing the levels that you see here. This is some sort of shrine, and we're getting more story details about what Agartha was going to be, because in the demo, you got the just briefest flash in the pan of what was going on. You were in a snowy village somewhere in the mountains, looked like Romania based on the art style and some of the text on the walls, but we really didn't know much. But having this extra bit of demo right here is really going to cement more of what's going on. Clearly, there's some sort of otherworldly religious element to it. And as we get further in the video, you're going to see a couple images of Arthur Crowley's books. So there's definitely an occult sort of thing going on in Agartha. But of course, this always happens to me. Every time I talk about a prototype or an unreleased game saying this is what exists, you can check it out, it's worth it, magically within like a week or 2 weeks or a month, more resources are found. And I didn't do any of this. I will leave a link to the description below as to the parties that were involved in this. I definitely do hunt down prototypes and release them from time to time on the channel, but I take no credit for the additional Agartha that you're seeing here as far as the hunting it or fixing of the files. And you will see this demo is definitely a lot more broken than the prototype I showed. The collision is all over the map, and you really have to struggle to see things. You're really going to have to loop back around in the environment and the architecture to be able to navigate the world. And unlike the previous demo that had loading zones between areas, this one has no loading whatsoever. The doors are not functional, you can just clip right through them, but you can see we're in this other interior environment that definitely has the look and feel of like an 1800s school classroom. So it's really interesting what's going on. But if we pop over here to this next door, we're in this office environment, and there are cinematics that I'll include in the end of the video talking more about the story that showcase these. So basically all these levels are from different cinematics that the developers had used to demo the game when it was still coming out on Dreamcast. And Intrepid modders have basically used those demos that are in engine real time to be able to navigate around these maps that would have been set up for that particular capture. So these aren't as fully fleshed out as the previous prototype that I showed you, but it's great to get another look at Agartha because this game seemed like something really special. I'm really disappointed this never came out and developers didn't pick it up and move it to PlayStation 2, because I would say graphically it looks incredible. I mean, I enjoy The Thing on PlayStation 2, the game based on John Carpenter's movie, and this has a lot of The Thing vibes to me, and as far as the graphics are concerned, this would definitely hold up to a lot of PlayStation 2 games, especially some of the earlier generational ones. You can definitely tell things aren't unfinished. There's just a black texture there with blood. It looks like it's supposed to be a table. But whatever is going on in the world of Agartha is not good. But the interesting thing from this demo with the cutscenes and a little bit more of what we get to see is exactly what is happening. We get a lot more story that kind of gives us the concept of what went wrong in this world, what we're fighting against. And that's really interesting because it actually answers a lot of the questions I talked about in the previous Agartha video, because I wanted to know more of what this world was about, what the backstory was, what was going on. And you can see here right up in the distance we have this gigantic, looks like a castle, but of course it's just a big house. And unfortunately, just based upon the completeness of it, this is an environment that you don't actually get to go inside. Once you walk through those doors, you're going to see that there's nothing inside of the castle whatsoever. But as far as just an image, it looks really haunting and nice. but that's just the completeness or lack thereof of this particular executable. There's actually 3 different GDI files that you can play. I'm playing this on emulator, so I could do this quickly for Friday because this is Wednesday when I'm recording it, but I did test this as well on an original Dreamcast, and the files work perfectly fine. You don't need any dev hardware to do this, and this is an environment that I showed from the previous video, and it's less involved. There's less characters in here, but the menu system and the inventory is much more expanded. So this feels like another beta that was kind of more playing around with the cutscenes and the different objects you could hold within, because you'll see our main character here is now holding an urn. Clearly it would have been important later on down the line, but at this point in time we don't know the full story, so we don't really get a sense of what that is. But I am working with somebody else to get more of the story of this game, the backstory. But you'll see here as I flip through that book, quickly you saw Crowley there, but there is a lot more inventory going on, and all of these items are fully rendered in 3D. And if you go back out to that inventory screen, they spin around. It feels very Resident Evil-like. What I want to talk about is the cutscenes, because they are quite interesting. Now, I am going to have to use a little bit of conjecture as to what I think is going on, but hopefully I get an answer from the people I'm working with soon as to what's happening. But I love this little intro animation. You can see the character's eyebrows and forehead raised with that very expressive facial expression. There is a lot going on here, and the developers had a really good handle of the Dreamcast hardware because those facial animations are quite good. But you can tell our main character, whose name I do not know, has come to this village from the outside because his dress is more modern. It looks more European than it does kind of Eastern Europe. This is actually in Romania, like I'm guessing, or one of those countries. You can definitely tell that the main character dresses in a completely different way than the residents of the town. But I love all these little story vignettes, and we're getting really into that D2 vibe going on because we have this snowy environment, and you're going to see here something has gone wrong in this village, and we're not quite sure what it is yet. But as we zoom into this car, and this is in-engine, I'm not controlling it, this is pre-set up by the developers, we have a dead man at the wheel, and there's a briefcase on that chair. What's in the briefcase? We don't know. Will we find out one day? Possibly. But as you see here and you come in, a lot of these demos aren't horror-based. You'll see this villager come out and you'll notice what I mean about the idiosyncrasies of the villager's dress versus our main character's dress. This is much more rustic Eastern Europe versus he kind of looks like Sean Connery, his more British style of dress. But this character here is going to bring logs out from this little door. And what's interesting is not the cutscene itself, but it's what's actually inside of that door. And I will show you in a moment because that was from the original demo. What I will do after the credits, I will put all of these cutscenes up in chronological order without me talking over them so you can watch them one off. Now, the emulator and the original hardware does have some loading issues, so there may be a couple of cutscenes that I wasn't able to include because of the debug menu, but you'll see here that room that guy just went into to get logs has the body of a hanging villager in it. Is he already evil when he's getting those logs? Is that body already in there? We don't know, but it's really interesting to watch that cutscene and realize what happened afterwards. And I am showing these in the sequential order in which they appear on the demo as well. With a keyboard, you can basically skip around and view different cutscenes. But this is where we get real big D2 vibes, and I will show you this environment in a second. But you come into this tavern here, and something is drinking. You can see the blood splattered on his or her shirt, and they even use the shirt to wipe it. But as we pan up to this table here, this is where the real D2 elements come in. They've drank something that is not sitting well with them. Is the water supply poisoned? Has somebody forsaken this village? There's a lot of questions that we may never have answers to, but it's really fun to kind of read between the lines and find out what's going on. And I'm not sure how many people have played Resident Evil 8 Village yet, but it has a really same feeling to that. This village in Europe, something has invaded it, something has gone wrong. And you'll see here as this villager gets ready to mount his horse, the doors start shaking, a zombie bursts in and vomits purple vomit with chunks on the ground. They've all been infected, but by what? I think that's what our main character was here to examine. Somehow or another, he found out something was going wrong at the village, and you see that Crowley portrait there as well. That could be placeholder art. It could be integral to the story. It's really hard to say, and like I said, the people that I'm talking to that were involved in this game, if they can give me more of the story, I will certainly make another follow-up video to this, more detailing what it is that was supposed to happen, because still we have to deal with this open-ended question of exactly what was going on in the world of Agartha. But you see this gigantic pan through some of the environments I've already shown you. You can see that red blood there with that book hanging and what looks to be a stove. It kind of looks like a flatbread pizza. I'm sure it's not. But I just love how this game looks. It's so unfortunate that we didn't actually get this on the Dreamcast, because I think Agartha would have been something particularly special. Even though there's not that much going on, you can see there Vlad Tepes, the portrait on the wall, and that's why I say that this is Romania or Transylvania. I'm highly confident in that being correct because of that portrait, and I did actually pull up some Romanian and Transylvanian tapestries on Google Images and did some research. I have a fine art degree and I'm really used to having to research things, and everything checks out. So I'm 99.9% sure this takes place somewhere in Romania or Transylvania. Now, as far as the year is concerned, based on the vehicles, 1950s, late, early 1960s seems to be about what we're dealing with. And of course, if this is a remote village, they're going to have things that for time and place are a little bit older. But I just love all these sweeping camera movements as we navigate around these environments that I showed you in Engine. You cannot interact with whatever this is on the table here, but it definitely wants you to see it. It looks almost like a hand guillotine, a knife that you put your wrist through and then someone's hand is chopped off. That is just an opinion. I could be completely wrong. Not sure if it's a real device from historical context or if it's something made up fully for the game. We may never know. But you will see here that castle that I showed you beforehand. We get this sweeping pan over the wall, and I will say I am a filmmaker. That's my background. I have a BFA in film production, and I was a college professor of film. Whoever was making these cutscenes was quite talented at moving the camera. This is way more cinematic than I was used to seeing in the Dreamcast era, but you can see whatever this house is, these monsters are descending on it. They kind of almost look slightly like werewolves or some other sort of creature. They don't have the appearance of straight zombies, but you can see compared to when they were poisoned earlier and they were vomiting versus where we have them now, their bodies are degrading a little bit more. They're looking a little bit more worse for wear. They're not wearing clothing. So I really do think as these sequences go on, we're going into the game more and more sequentially to find out what is happening. And that is the amazing part about getting more of these betas and why I always talk about them, celebrate their release, and when I can, acquire betas on my own and release them to the community. This is a piece of gaming history. I did a video on it a month ago, and here I am a month later, and we have even more. And if everything works out, we may have even more in the future. But short of that, that is the addition to Agartha. This was not an episode I planned on making, but I'm super happy I was able to. Anytime I have to do a follow-up to a beta game, that means more content is available. Do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, that notification bell definitely helps us out. I will be back next Tuesday with more Dreamcast. I'll have videos Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday as well. But stay tuned after the credits because all of these cutscenes will be playing in the same order I've talked about them, but you won't have to listen to my voice over it. See you guys next time. What's behind the door? Bye-bye.